Welcome to the Nutrition Science Podcast, where we help you cut through the noise and make informed, science-based decisions about nutrition and your health.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Today we have a Q&A episode, and we are going to be discussing three topics. The first topic that we're going to discuss is mushroom coffees. These have gotten popular in recent months, and I feel like there's been a few waves of popularity with these mushroom coffees, and I want to discuss whether or not there's any value in adding a mushroom coffee to your routine. The second topic that we're going to discuss is resistant starches. And if you don't know what resistant starches are, you definitely want to make sure and tune in for that part of the episode. This is a really interesting topic. These resistant starches are essentially a fiber that is created from carbohydrate-containing foods when they are cooled. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the second part of this episode. And then the last topic that we're going to discuss is nightshades and arthritis, and whether or not nightshades contribute to the development or worsening of arthritis. If you don't know what nightshades are, these are peppers, eggplant, tomatoes, potatoes, and there are people who claim these foods contribute to arthritis, and we're going to discuss whether or not that's actually true. So let's go ahead and get into the first topic, which is mushroom coffees. So mushroom coffees, I looked into some of the most popular products. I wasn't familiar with anything. I haven't purchased any of these products, and I haven't looked into them in a while, in a couple of years. So I went and looked into some of the most popular products that are currently available on the market, and I have a few major concerns. So the first thing is that most of these mushroom coffees, well, not most of them, all the ones I looked at, had proprietary blends, means that they're not listing the individual amounts of each of the ingredients on the product. Now, when you're taking a supplement, it's really important to know what you're taking. And if you're taking a proprietary blend, you have no idea. And so when something's being sold as a supplement, you definitely want to make sure that they're listing out everything that they're including, because some of these products are making claims. They're claiming that, they can enhance focus or boost memory, and they're basing those claims off of some of the benefits of some of the mushrooms in the supplement. So let's say, for example, cordyceps mushrooms. So there may be a study that shows that when people take cordyceps, they perform a little bit better in a certain activity. And the mushroom coffee company is trying to take that specific study and use that to claim that their mushroom coffee has those benefits. But the reality is that if you look at the study is using a much higher dose of that mushroom. You don't even know what the dose is in the proprietary blend, and they're using a standardized form of the mushroom. So what you'll see in quality supplements, quality mushroom supplements, is it'll say standardized to at least 3% beta-glucans or 7% polysaccharides. This tells us the potency of that mushroom, the amount of the active ingredients, because you can take a mushroom extract, and if that mushroom was grown in certain conditions, the potency might be significantly lower. And so you have the same amount of a mushroom, but one was grown under different conditions, and the extract has 3 or 4 times more of the active ingredients that we're trying to get from that mushroom, and they're going to be substantially different. So when we're taking supplements, we want to make sure that we know what we're getting, and we're very precise about what we're getting. And none of these mushroom coffee supplements offer any level of precision in terms of telling us the amounts or any potency of these mushrooms. So that's one of my major concerns. If you're trying to take mushrooms for health benefits, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting, the amounts that you're getting, and you're buying extracts that are standardized. And even then, and we'll talk about this, I'm going to do another episode just on mushrooms, and I want to talk about mushrooms from a nutrition standpoint and eating mushrooms and some of the benefits of that, and then some of the supplemental research. The supplemental research, just to give it away, it's not impressive. You'll see some studies, you'll be able to see people cite studies showing benefits of mushrooms, showing like quote unquote improved immune function, and in reality it's a minor improvement in one specific part of the immune system that probably doesn't make a difference clinically in the larger picture of health. So I'll talk about that more on that episode, but just generally speaking, taking mushrooms as a supplement, that there has been shown to be some benefits for some standardized extracts in certain doses, but taking these mushroom coffee supplements probably not going to be very beneficial overall. I would recommend, if you're thinking about taking one of these supplements and you want to get some of the benefits of incorporating mushrooms into your diet to incorporate mushrooms into your diet. I don't know many people who regularly eat mushrooms. And as I mentioned, we'll talk about this in a full episode where I cover mushrooms. But there are many health benefits associated with mushroom consumption: lower rates of cancer, improved blood sugar control, improved immune function. And mushrooms are pretty easy to incorporate into the diet. And I feel like they are under-eaten overall. Many people could benefit from incorporating more mushrooms into the diet. So I would highly recommend going that route first before considering a mushroom coffee. And then when it comes to the mushroom coffee, the supplements are all over the place. Some of them said the caffeine amount, some of them didn't. In my personal preference, I'd rather just drink coffee, eat mushrooms, incorporate them into my diet. It's pretty easy to incorporate them into your diet. You can chop them up really small, cook them with ground beef or ground turkey. You don't even taste them. And just a couple servings per week is probably going to have a health benefit over the course of your lifetime. And like I said, we'll talk about that research in a podcast that I dedicate specifically to mushrooms. And what I want to do, the reason that I'm mentioning this is I'm going to start adding a few episodes where I just focus on one food. Because I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful for us to learn about why incorporating some of these foods into our diet can be beneficial. This was one of the things that really changed my perspective on nutrition during my master's degree and PhD, was reading a lot of this research, reading some of the randomized trials, reading some of the animal studies on some of the benefits of some of the nutrients in a lot of these foods. So I think it'll be really interesting to start to incorporate some of those episodes. Next, let's get into resistant starches. So resistant starches, as I mentioned, are similar to a fiber. I mean, it's essentially fiber. So resistant starches, they resist digestion. That's what resistant means. And they are formed when starchy foods are cooled down in a process called starch retrogradation. And what happens is when these resistant starches are formed, we can no longer digest the carbohydrates. So let's say, for example, you were eating a cup of rice. It had 40 grams of carbohydrates. You cooled it down and then you reheated it the next day, because you can reheat it. The resistant starches will remain even when you reheat it. And so you cooled it down, you had leftover rice the next day, say 2 grams or 3 grams of those carbohydrates get converted into resistant starches, and now they're not available for digestion. And not only that, but they act as a fiber source, slowing down digestion. And not only that, but they act as a fiber source, slowing down digestion, feeding our gut microbes, improving blood sugar responses after our meals, and more. And so there's a lot of health benefits associated with resistant starches that are pretty much all of the health benefits that we see from fiber consumption. So if you want to learn more about fiber, and I also talk about resistant starches on the fiber episode, because they are essentially a type of fiber, even though they're not classified as fiber. So I will link that episode into the show notes. I highly recommend that one, especially if you have a GI issue, if you haven't listened to it. Fiber is an important topic. Fiber is very beneficial for our health, but fiber is a little bit more complicated than just eat more fiber. There's different types of fiber. These different types of fiber have different effects, and it's helpful to have a bit of an understanding of it. So I'd recommend checking that out. But resistant starches, they are created when we cook starchy foods and then let them cool. So I mentioned rice, pasta, oats, beans. So if you're cooking beans and cooling that, all of these are going to have some of these resistant starches. Now, the amount of resistant starches that are formed will depend on the food, will depend on how much you're cooling it. But if you're putting it into the fridge, you're letting it stay there overnight, some of these resistant starches are going to develop and you're going to get some of these health benefits. And as I mentioned, it's going to lower your blood sugar response. So let's say, for example, you ate the rice on night 1 without it being cooled down, and your blood sugar went up to 120 after the meal. And then you had the exact same meal the next day, but you allowed the rice to cool and then you ate it again, your blood sugar may go up to 110 or 105. Some of those carbohydrates that were previously available for digestion and to increase your blood sugar are no longer available because we cannot digest them. So they go through our small intestine, they pass to the large intestine just like any fiber would, and then they get fermented by microbes in our large intestine. And when it comes to resistant starches, they seem to be uniquely beneficial at helping to feed some of the bacteria that produce a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate. And butyrate helps to reduce inflammation in our intestines. It serves as a fuel source. It's really important for the health of our intestines for our microbes to be producing butyrate, and eating more resistant starches can help with that. So, quick, easy way to improve the nutritional quality of your diet: make some of your carbohydrates in bulk and let them cool. So, if you like to incorporate rice into your meals, you can make some of that in bulk and let it cool. You can also buy frozen rice. And another thing that you can do is overnight oats. So, if you cook some oats up, you let it cool in the fridge, it's going to produce some of those resistant starches. Then you can eat it throughout the week. You can do the same with pasta, as I mentioned. Bread, the same will occur if you put bread in the freezer, let it thaw. This will occur with pretty much any high carbohydrate starchy food. Now, it's important to note that it's not just going to wipe out all the carbohydrates from that food. It's only a couple of grams that are going to get converted, but it does seem to make a difference in blood sugar control and overall health outcomes. There's plenty of research showing benefits from consuming resistant starches. I'll post some of those links in the show notes if you're interested in reading into those. All right, the last thing that we're going to discuss is nightshades and arthritis. So this is a popular claim, and there's actually a little bit of truth to it. So nightshades includes tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and potatoes, as I mentioned. And these foods have compounds called glycoalkaloids. And some of these compounds can interact with the immune system of some people. And it goes back to some of what I discussed on the gluten episode 2 episodes back, where some people's immune system will react to these compounds, and some people's immune system will be more reactive to these compounds under certain circumstances. The same can be said with nightshades, except the reaction to nightshades is extremely rare. I've never personally seen it. I've heard anecdotes, and I don't like to dismiss them because I've heard multiple people say this. We don't have good evidence in the research that restricting nightshades is beneficial. That evidence doesn't exist. There's an ongoing study right now looking at that specific outcome, having people with arthritis restricting nightshades. And the challenge with some of these things is they are very individual, and some people may react and others may not. And if you pull that data, and let's say you have 20 people, 2 people have negative reactions to nightshades and they feel a lot better when they take them out, everyone else experiences no benefit, the average may show no benefit or no change, when in reality 2 people are experiencing some of these negative effects. I've seen this with clients with a variety of different foods. And so I am now at the point where I'm not at all surprised to see people reacting negatively to foods, especially when there's a physiological justification for it, like there is in the case of the nightshades. Nightshades have these compounds that in laboratory settings can react with the immune system, but we have not demonstrated this in actual human studies. It definitely doesn't contribute to the development of arthritis. We know that eating more nightshade-containing foods doesn't put someone at risk if they were harmful, like some people claim. So there are some people that claim that these nightshade-containing foods just create inflammation, not contribute to the development of arthritis, but create inflammation in everyone. And this is just completely ridiculous. There are so many cultures that incorporate lots of these foods. So I'm Mexican. We eat salsa that is basically nightshades. This is tomatoes and peppers for the most part. There's onions and garlic and cilantro in there as well, but that's what it is. Italians are eating pasta sauce. It's just tomatoes. If these nightshade containing foods were really as dangerous as some people claim online, it would be devastating for some of these cultures that incorporate a lot of these foods into their diet. And it's not, because they are overall very nutritious. So eating tomatoes, for example, is associated with lower rates of cancer. The lycopene in the tomatoes that gives it is red pigmentation in test tubes, is like fights off cancer cells. Same with peppers. There's some evidence that people who eat more peppers have lower rates of heart disease. There aren't negative effects from consuming these foods. There are unique cases where some person may have a negative reaction to it, and taking these nightshades away may benefit someone. And that's probably more likely in people with arthritis who have underlying immunological condition where their immune system is more reactive to certain things. Anytime someone has an autoimmune condition where the immune system is turned up and attacking their own tissues, sometimes the immune system can react to various foods in negative ways as well. Again, we don't have scientific evidence that nightshades are causing issues, but I do believe that there are probably people who do have a negative reaction to nightshades, and we just don't have great ways of identifying these people yet. All right, so that's all I have for that topic. Let's go ahead and do a quick review before we end the episode. The first thing that we discussed is mushroom coffees. I generally don't recommend them, especially if they are selling you a proprietary blend and you don't know what's in it. If you enjoy drinking them and you want to keep drinking your mushroom coffee, great, but just not something I would recommend going out of your way to purchase for health reasons. The second thing that we discussed is resistant starches, and these are starches that essentially turn into a fiber-like compound when high starch containing foods like rice and pasta and oats are cooked and cooled. So if you want to take advantage of some of the health benefits of these resistant starches, make sure that you cool some of your carbohydrate containing foods before eating them and after cooking them. And the third thing that we discussed is nightshades and arthritis and inflammation. Nightshades generally do not cause arthritis or inflammation or worsen these conditions. However, there is circumstances where some individuals may have an immune system that is particularly reactive to these things, and they may benefit from removing them from their diet. So that's all we have for this episode of the Nutrition Science Podcast. I hope you all have a great week, and we will talk soon.